Thanks to Madam President, to Jacqueline for warmly welcoming us and opening this session. I'd like to introduce to you our next speaker. He's Julius Akinyemi, who's coming to us from the MIT Media Lab in the US. He's the initiator of the Unleashing the Wealth of Nations project, and he's going to be talking to us about unleashing the untapped knowledge-based potential of African women. So, Julius, I give you the floor. Let me ask you a quick question before we start. So, you might have noticed that Julius has as his title, Entrepreneur in Residence at the MIT Media Lab, and I'd just like to know, what does that mean to be Entrepreneur in Residence at an academic institution?
It means you get lucky.
Okay.
No, when I brought Pepsi, I used to run Pepsi Technologies. When I brought them, I was one of the first people at MIT Media Lab, and I will talk a little bit about that later, that actually connected the dots. We have a lot of research and development going on in technology, in medicine, and everywhere else. But the magic is to be able to connect the dots and then make something out of it. So I did that, and then they never thought about that before. They said, oh, okay, then we make you the entrepreneur in residence. Oh, and that's how that happened.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we look forward to hearing some of the magic, and eager to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Well, Madam Le President, presidents, diplomatic corps, ministers, distinguished guests, it is such a great, great, great pleasure for me to be here. And as I always told my friends back in the States, anytime I'm on African soil, you know, I feel like a little boy again, you know, that come back home. So it's such a pleasure to be back home. Thank you for having me, and I hope we have a great time in discussing the issues of our time. So let's get started. So for this meeting, this is all about the environment and our sustainability. What I'll be talking about, we deal a lot with statistics, and I will try to interpret that. We'll talk about some of the solutions, and during the week, or the next 2 days, we will be talking about the specifics. We have specialists that are here, and we will be talking more in details about that. So let me briefly, you know, just so you know, briefly talk about MIT Media Lab. Presumably, MIT Media Lab, as most people may know, is one of the world's topmost innovation lab in the world. And it's not so much of what they have accomplished that make me put them up. It's so much of how do they do what they do, and how does that help us to be able to solve the problem that confronts us. So if you look at the lower right-hand corner, I put in there, you know, where the sorcerer and the apprentices invent and reinvent the future. And you kind of wonder, who are the sorcerers? Who are the apprentices? Well, you know, as we know from our own playing around, that, you know, you have the sorcerer, you have the apprentices, you wave the magic wand, and then you perform magic. And sometimes I felt that magic gets performed at the MIT Media Lab. So who are the sorcerers? These are the professors, the faculty. And who are the apprentices? They are the students. But they are not the ordinary faculty and the ordinary students. The key element that I want to drive out of that is these are men and women, most especially women that are running groups that are looking at research and development that are the topmost of the solutions of the problems of the world. Any problem that is existing that people can easily solve, MIT Media Lab doesn't get involved. They believe they have to create the future. So in order to be able to create that future, it's a fundamental belief that we have to have gender, because it's the aggregation of the gender that actually look at these problems, because we bring in different capabilities. So we have one of our top women running robotics. We have some of them running affective computing, looking at how we use systems to be able to read your neural system so we can read your emotions, especially for autism, and then we get to use that in technology that helps in businesses. So, ladies and gentlemen, all I'm trying to tell here is not so much of the MIT that you know. Yes, if MIT were a country based on what they have done so far, it would be the 10th largest country in the world. But that's the power of innovation. Okay? It's how we do it, making sure that we have a gender balance. Because I want you to be very careful, to listen to me very, very carefully on this sentence. It is not a zero-sum game. Let me explain that. When I say it is not a zero-sum game, it's not a game where we are facing a climate challenge, and we say, well, let's put the women aside, let men go and solve that problem, and whatever women cannot solve, men just put in more hours, and then they can achieve it. No, it doesn't happen that way. It's a cumulative one. Anybody will leave behind, especially the women will leave behind, that knowledge capital that we left behind, we will never gain it. It's a lost future. And we cannot afford to lose our future. And I will explain why we cannot afford to lose our future in a few minutes. So when I was coming yesterday, for the first time, I look at the island from the airplane. I said, wow, this is wonderful. This is great. I even tried to take the picture as, I was so excited. But my picture, obviously, I'm not one of the great picture takers, so my picture didn't come out as good as I would love to. So I went on the internet yesterday and picked out a few of these pictures. How beautiful, the flora, the fauna, and I've walked around. It's wonderful. But at the same time, some of the work we did before I came, we have coastal erosions right here on the island. And as Madam the President told us earlier on, the sad part is not because citizens of the Republic of Mauritius caused the problem, but it's because of the global problem that we don't have any control over. There is no wall that we can create to isolate the source of the problem from the rest of the world. We heat up the ocean layer gets heated up, it causes rise in the ocean, it causes erosion, where at the least places that we can afford to have it. So that's a problem we have to solve. And I bring it back to my own backyard. This is the delta, the Nigerian Niger Delta, and this is a woman bathing her child in a polluted water of the delta. Now, if all of you remember, and this is something that I like to talk about in order for us to be able to understand the impact that the damage of environment has caused to us. In 2010, the worst spill in the US happened. It was roughly about 200 million gallons at the Gulf of Mexico. The whole world, literally, the whole world heard about it. The president of the US went down there. At the same time, the same year, we have almost 400 million gallons spilled in the Niger Delta in Nigeria. Hardly did anybody know about it. Hardly. If you are not paying attention to it, or if you are not from the area, you probably didn't know anything about it. I had to go and dig out the information before I could find it myself as a Nigerian. So what does that mean? Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to that, we know, and we already recorded, that in year 2007, 50% of the whole population of the world will be living in urban cities. And what does that mean to us? Further degradation of the environment. So, how do we deal with all of this? And where do we go from there? We know all of these things exist. So, let me give you a little side story. Roughly about a year ago, summer last year, usually there's a group of future technologies, they get together, we talk about what is going on. So there's a gentleman that I've known for a long time, Alan Cape, some of you may know him. is one of the foremost and the pioneer of graphical user interface. Brilliant individual. Used to run the Xerox PAC, one of those key people in computer sciences. So I said, Alan, wait a minute. I said, I really need to do something with you. I said, we have this big continent, Africa, I call home, and we need a big innovation hub. And we have to find a way to solve the big African problems in a practical way in these innovation hubs. So he gave me one of his very popular quotes that most of the people in the world knows. He said, Julius, he said, Africa has to invent the future of Africa. So this is the point, this is my point today. Given what we have heard from the president, given what we have heard from Madame Franju, given everything that we'll be talking about today, the key element that I want to stress to all of us is we need to put our heads together and we have to create our own future. And the only way we can do that is if we envision it, we know we have to solve the climate problem. So if we can put that in our mind, and then we said, okay, let's put our heads together in order to be able to create that future for us. So how do we do that? Ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, it's not a zero-sum game. We cannot create or invent the future of Africa without women. It's impossible. We cannot do it, even if we try. If we try, we will never get to where we want to get to. So how do we then create this future? We know more than 50% of sub-Saharan Africans are women. These statistics it doesn't support where we want to go. If you look at that statistics from education point of view, we are the least gender compatible, both at primary level, at secondary level, at tertiary level of education. So if we're going to create our future together, we have to do better. We have to make sure that all of our girls are educated and they have equal access to education. Unequal opportunity creates unequal lifestyle. It doesn't get us to where we need to get to. So, likewise, if you look at the women engagement at the workforce, the same permeates, meaning if you cannot educate at the level on primary, secondary, tertiary, you are feeding into the workforce. Therefore, you cannot do that either. But this is where we need to start creating a future. So if we don't have the gender equalization that is going to be able to help us to put in that idea that says, yes, we can collaboratively work on this. As I said, again, the emphasis is not something we can do individually. Even if we have done it individually and we sum it up, we will still not solve that problem. It's the collaborative effort that we need to put together in order to be able to solve that problem. So, as I was coming, I thought about all of this. Our women, they till the soil, even when they were carrying the baby on their back. They harvest, and basically the men take the final harvest to the market in order to cash on the money. That is not a way to grow an economy. We cannot have a lifestyle where our women that continue to harvest, continue to do the hard labor work, that do not have access to land ownership, that do not have access to equal education, that do not have access to equal pay, equal job. So these are the fundamental problems that we have to face. And as that statistics shows, 43% of the labor in agriculture in the whole world are women. In sub-Saharan African, it goes as high as 70%, which means the women in sub-Saharan, they are the one we depend on. They are the one feeding us. We cannot live without them. But yet, if we don't have equal access to all of the things that we need to do, we will never get there. So we've talked about that problem. And here is a statement from Michelle. There is, which says that if we can give access, the rights and access to land and leadership, economies will grow, we will have food security, and the world will be a better place. I couldn't put it any better. I figure I might as well just cut and paste it. That's what we are talking about today. So what have we done about that? Some of the things that some of us have done about that is we started this project I called the Unleashing the Wealth of Nations, where every land opportunity is recorded, and then instead of a dormant asset, we mobilize it in order that the owners will be able to leverage them. Now, we can define the owners. Who are the ones working on it? The women are the ones working on it. So my hope is that by doing this, we will be able to have women that are in labor, that are working in the labor force, be able to have access to ownership of the land. And men that do not have that right also will be able to do that. But the most important thing is we can record them, we can put them in a digital asset grid, as I call it, we can mobilize this asset, and then they can leverage this asset to be able to afford, to get an affordable loan in order to create wealth, and then to be able to grow that wealth, which is what we need in Africa today. I want to also show you, this is a R&D that I did myself. I pulled it out of the Federal Reserve Bank information in the US. The green line is the net worth of individuals. These are not businesses, but individuals, like you and me and small businesses. The red line is the equity rights of the individuals, meaning if you have right to your own home, if you have right to your asset, the more the right is, the better you are in terms of wealth creation. So those are very highly correlated. But this is what we are missing in Africa today because we don't have this. Most of the time, the women and the people that own the land, they do not have the proper right to the asset, and they are not able to actually leverage them. So in addition, what we have done is now, if we have your asset, we are now saying either you're a woman, most especially women, that actually go to the market to trade, we want to open the commodity market to them. So they can, on their cell phone, be able to trade, instead of going to the market and then being in the informal sector. If we can bring everybody to the formal sector, our economy will grow, we will assure food safety, we will assure accountability, for the people that participate in the marketplace. And that's how we grow wealth. This is just to show you how impactful that will be. The red line below is the physical asset that were traded in the US over the years, and both the blue line and the green line is the multiplier effect. So just imagine, if we have an economy of, let's say, $200 billion, okay, and we are able to put all that commodity trading into the open marketplace, the multiplier effect is in thousands of percentages. So our women that go out to the market to sell tomatoes and sell bananas, if we can get the hotels to buy future contracts on those bananas and tomatoes, that will improve their access to financing, they will improve their access to wealth and their ability to grow wealth. So, is innovation the answer? Yes. We have seen it done. We have seen innovation in the mobile technology platform, but we have to be careful. That innovation has to give us, especially the global sundry, meaning all of us and the women that are concerned, it has to make it equitable. We cannot exclude anyone from that process. Likewise, it has to create jobs. It has to be accessible to everyone and not just a few in terms of the technology capability. Now, we talk about the small island states. And I was in touch with some of our folks at OECD. This is the outlook for the future assistance. That assistance is going down, meaning we are not going to have as much money available in future as we have had before. The reason being that a lot of the money is going to the conflict areas, so we have too many competition for the same assistance. The more reason why we have to create our own future. So, as I was coming, I want to touch on the sustainable energy as well. The last 5 days, if anybody is following the energy industry, you will find out that within the last 5 days, Germany produced more energy than they can ever actually use. So they are now, basically paying people in effect, for energy. But by the same token, we are Africa. We have more sand than they ever had in Germany. There's no reason why we couldn't do that. So something to keep in mind. Now, let me also, before I run through those closing points, let me give you just a personal experience that I had. Maybe I have a bias on this because of the way I consider my mother. When I was leaving home, I was going to America to study. And in our home, everybody was there. I mean, everybody on in our street came with me to Lagos to wish me well, the traditional way. And before you leave, you have to prostrate on the ground for all of the elders to thank them and wish them, and before you leave. So you leave your mother and your father to the end. So I did all of that to make the long story short. I got to my father, he blessed me, he said, Julius, God bless you, work hard and make sure everything works. I got to my mother, the hardest part for me. I had my boarding card in my hand. I prostrate down to say goodbye. This is seconds. Before I got up, my boarding card was wet, my passport was wet, tears was rolling down my face. And in her own way, she looked at me. She said, Julius, if it doesn't work out in America, you have a home to come to. And ladies and gentlemen, that has been the pillar of my life. Anytime I take a risk, I know I have a home to come to. So let's work together to make this planet a home for our future children to come to that we can be proud of. So briefly, I will run through the closing points that I would like for you to please keep in mind as we go through the next day. Let's all work together to make sure that the gender equalization is there and we can unleash the wealth in our women because we cannot do it alone. Let's ensure there's access, equal access for all, especially our youth. Internet access should be a way of life, not a privilege, because that's how business is done today. Women's right to property ownership, that's key. We cannot solve the environmental problems if the women that are working the soil don't have the right to the soil they work on. So, and our youth, these are our future. Any girl will lose a part of our future. We don't want to do that. So, and to all of you, I want to please ask you, you are specialists in your areas. We will be talking about the detailed effects of issues today and tomorrow. Be a beam of light that radiates to all of the people, especially the girls, that tell them you can be anything you want to be. Don't be a ray of light to yourself that shine on its own. And in a word of my mother, let's make this a welcoming home for our future children. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Julius. Thank you. Just one moment. So we are going to go to our networking break in a moment, but I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that the pivotal, like the leverage points are really about education and land ownership. And the process you described with digital asset briefs, it sounds very complex. What would that mean for an agricultural worker here in Mauritius or in another country? What does that process look like, briefly?
Actually, the process is very simple. So we already created the database, and all we have to do is have an organization where we record those individuals and their property. And recording the property, we have technologies that are doing that today. We are doing it on a mobile device. So you can basically go on your mobile device and register yourself, and we organize in such a way that we have somebody to attest to what you are recording, so there is no dispute about that. And once that is done, the rest is just about the technology at the back end. So again, mobile technology has broken down that barrier of trade and registry.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sure you'll get a lot more questions about this at the break, but thank you very much. Sure, thank you very much to our opening speakers and to all of you.